Is there anything you want to share that popped up in the mind over this last week that you're comfortable to share that relates to the idea that we actually only experience what we're thinking and we're only feeling what we're thinking? Otherwise, I'll jump in. Anything? Okay. So, there are a lot of different verses you could identify that are making the claim that this is what Yiddishkeit is all about. Judaism is all inside this one verse. You might choose Shema Yisrael. You might choose Avdarecha Kamecha. So it's interesting that there's one place where the Torah actually says, what does Hashem ask of you only? And then it gives you a short list. So I thought I'll share it with you. It's a famous pasuk. It's in Parshas Ekev. V'ata Yisrael. It's in Perek Yud, pasuk Yud Beis. V'ata Yisrael. And now, Jewish people, Ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach. What is Hashem asking from you? Ki'im only liyiras es Hashem Elokecha, to be in awe of Hashem. You can translate it as fear if you want. Which mitzvah is that taking place with? Your hand, your pinky, your elbow? Where do we do yiras Hashem? So that's in the mind. Laleches b'chol d'rachav, to go in all his ways, and that's referring to the mitzvah of emulating HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is d'rachav is referring to all his mitzvahs. Erech hapayim, chesed, that starts with a generous mind. You can say generous-hearted, but that's actually what we're referring to. It's a generous attitude. That's why the person is so giving. Any one of Hashem's traits that we're told to emulate, it's included in these words. B'chol d'rachav, go in his ways. Continues the same pasuk, ul'ava oisai, and to love him. That's taking place in the mind. V'lavay des Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, and love him with all your thoughts. So far, it's almost like, what about mitzvahs? What about actually the physical mitzvahs, though? You know, Tefillin, Shabbos, Yom Tov, etc. So far, it seems pretty clear that what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us in the name of God, that what he wants from us, more than anything else, is our mind. We actually have that statement many times in the Gemara. I think it's in Kufav in Sanhedrin. Rahmana liba boy. Hashem wants your leiv, your mind. Because if your mind is on Hashem, then Hashem knows. It's like, you know, when a Kala and Hassan, they're engaged, and he calls her at like 2 o'clock in the morning and says, I hope I didn't wake you. No, I was thinking about you. And they're on their phone for another 2 hours. So how do you know someone loves you? Is because you're on their mind. They're on your mind. So Rahmana Libaboy is a simple description of reality. How do I measure the relationship? Well, how much is that person on my mind and concerned? I don't want to say worried in a negative way, but I'm concerned for their needs on a daily basis, etc. So easily you could argue that when Hashem says, and love me with all your thoughts, is what's my baseline, what's my default? So, uv'chol nafshecha, with all your life. V'chol nafshecha, with all your life, all your soul. Chazal learn, uv'chol nafshecha means afilu noitel nafshecha. We actually are practicing every single day when we say the same words in Shema Yisrael, we're actually saying, God, I'm training that when you take my soul out of my body, I'm training every morning, every night, in saying, I'm going to go saying I love you. Because that's what the pasuk actually means. Love Hashem with all your soul. There's only one time that I can really properly do that. So that's the famous Rabbi Akiva. Turnus Rufus is saying to Rabbi Akiva, are you a machashef, a wizard, that you don't seem to be experiencing pain because you're laughing? He was actually laughing. It's not brought in the Gemara in Bavli, but in Shalmi, Saita, Perek Hey, Halacha Hey, actually says that Rabbi Akiva was laughing at the Roman governor while they were peeling his skin. So he said, are you a wizard that you have said some sort of spell that you can't feel the pain? Or are you someone who loves pain? You're a masochist. So Rabbi Akiva said, Rasha, you wicked man, I'm neither. I'm laughing at the irony that you think you're creating a Chil Hashem in front of all my Talmidim, that Rabbi Akiva, their teacher, is going in such a terrible, suffering way. And I'm laughing at the irony because all my life I've been praying to God, please help me that when I do die, B'chol nafshecha, I'll die saying I love you. And here Hashem gave me the opportunity to actually die saying Shema Yisrael in front of my Talmidim with joy. So he was actually arguing back that it's exactly the opposite of what you're thinking. You want it to be a Chil Hashem, and I'm telling you it's a Kiddush Hashem. There's always another dimension, and usually we don't have access to it. The Ruchnistic dimension, we just don't see it, and if we did, we wouldn't have Bechira. It would be just too clear, too obvious. I think actually a recent example, a few years ago, there was a Rabbi who took a group of, I think it was Bar Mitzvah boys, it was in the summer, to the ocean, and one of the boys was drowning. The Rabbi jumped in and actually did save his life, but the undercurrent took the Rabbi away and he actually did drown. And the wife was completely broken, obviously, and beside herself, left an almana with children. And then at the Shloshim, she had a dream, you probably heard this story, where her husband came to her and said, I was meant to die at that moment, but Hashem was mazaking me that I would die saving another Jew's life. And so, shining bright, explaining that please don't mourn for my loss. I know it's your loss, but don't mourn for my loss because I was going to die anyway at that moment. So there's always another dimension. We never have access to that till we leave our body, and then the soul, which knows everything. Even we spend every night in Shemayim, literally, and the soul is reunited with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. The soul has no barriers. There's no barriers of time and space. There's no barriers of information. The soul knows everything, every language. I'm not sure if I should tell you this, but I remember as a teenager, I was frum at the age of 11, but I didn't know that seances were forbidden. So I was attending a seance with a number of other people, and it was so interesting that the person that we were communicating with was answering all our questions. I'm not going to go into details of how seance works, but was answering all our questions because between us we knew several languages, and the glass in the middle of the table was moving to the letters that would spell out the answer in each language that we asked. I think we asked about 4 different languages. And then we asked, how's it possible that you're able to do that? And we also asked, how old is this spirit in the... So it claimed to be 2 years old. So we said, how can you know so many languages? So it was explaining to us that the soul has no barriers. Good afternoon. No barriers of...
Sorry, they're having a lunch.
Oh, that's okay. No, please. Yeah. I'm in good company. I'm a qualified zaken too. Ben Shishim and Zikna. So comes along HaKadosh Baruch Hu and says, I am the neshama of your neshama. You are literally a chelik elukam mimal, which in physical terms is difficult to say God has a part of him in us. That's just a way of speaking. But the concept that we do understand, we can see our personality in our children. I remember when my father passed away, it started to hit me more and more and more, literally every day, how much of his persona was in my personality that I wasn't really paying attention to. And for me, it was almost a matter of celebration that in that sense, he was living on inside me. I'm speaking a little bit metaphorically, but it's a concept that we can have a little bit of a grasp when we realize that we do actually influence the people that we give birth to in the spiritual DNA. And we can see that sometimes when we meet our parents-in-law for the first time, or not the first time, but start to get to know them better, we start to have insights about how there's nuances in our spouse that we see where it's coming from, where it's learned or deliberately picked up from, etc. So,
can we ask questions? Is that
yes, yeah.
Sorry, I haven't been able to make this up today. I'm
So you're...
Simi's mom.
Yay! Okay.
I'm very happy to be here.
And
So
Xavier's wife. Xavier's
Simi's
wife.
Simi's mom.
Right. And Roberto's daughter.
And Roberto's daughter, exactly. So with what you're saying, if you're a more anxious person, right, it goes with all of what you're saying. How do you, if that is passed, do you pass that on to your children? Like, is that something that they might have just because you're like that? Like, how do we break that chain
Right.
for our children?
It's a very good question. There's two pieces here. There's what I'm exposed to and that I can learn from or reject. And then there's Bechira. Some might call it nurture, nature, etc. But Bechira trumps everything. The ability to make a choice, which is always my next thought, is so strong that it can literally overcome anything that I'm exposed to. So there are Sfarim that tell us the very reason why Avram Avinu had to come from such a sordid background. His father Terach sold idols, and he wasn't even a sincere Christian. He sold it for money. He knew himself there's nothing there, and that's why he was angry when Avram actually destroyed them all. So he wasn't even sincere in his own adoption, and he turned his son in. Ask any psychologist or a therapist what's the rating of pain for a child of 0 to 10. 0 is the least pain, 10 is the most, for being betrayed by a parent. It's like, okay, that's off the charts. Avram Avinu was betrayed by his father to Nimrod. He really went through the works with all the different tests, and yet he came out who he became because of the choices he made. We learned I don't know if I shared with you last week, Rivka. Rivka's an extraordinary character. She's mentioned in this week's parasha. Last week she got married in the very, very long Perek Havdalad to Yitzhak. The whole shidduch takes place over there. So we're already introduced to her identity. She's the daughter of Betuel, the sister of Lavan from Padan Aram. And yet, for some odd reason, we'll find out in a moment, at the beginning of this week's parasha, it's only one perek later, Chaf Hey, the Yitzhak took Rivka, Ben Arbaim Shana, he was 40 years old when he married her, and then, instead of just getting on to the next verse, tells us Rivka was Bas Besuel, Achos Lavan, Mipadan Aram. We already know that. Why are you wasting ink? So comes along Rashi quoting the Medrash to tell us that her father was a Rasha. He was a horrific Rasha. Did we mention this last week?
No.
Besuel was not his real name. This is a mature audience, so I feel I can get away with it. He was king of Aram Naharaim. That was the area, really Mesopotamia, the area between two rivers. The rivers we're referring to was the Euphrates and the Tigris. He was king of that entire real estate, and he had a law that any Isha who was about to get married had to visit him the night before the chuppah. This was a sick man that was the father of Rivka. And the reason why the Malach knocked him off was because he was going to do the same thing to his own daughter the night before she would leave. So it was either tonight he gets knocked off or he's going to mess with Rivka. So his real name was not Besuel. It's the name the Torah gives him because that's the name that everyone hated him for because he was Boil Besulois. It was a play on the word Besula. So he got this name Besuel, but it wasn't really... I don't even know what his real name was, but that was not his real name. Her brother was Lavan. He was a gangster, a liar, a con man. He makes the Godfather look like Winnie the Pooh. I mean, he was really, really a trickster par excellence. Her father was a Rasha, her brother was a Rasha, says Rashi, quoting the Medrash. The Anshe Mekaima, her whole environment, were Rishayim. The Lolamdan Masehem. She made a choice not to. So it comes out that Bechira is a conscious choice. So I might have a lot of unconscious, if you want to call it, loyalties to the way I was raised, whether it's something as like anxiety. I'm not from making a parallel to any parents, but yes, I could have learned that my mother responds to aggravation or frustration with anger, and from that, I either have to work on not doing that with my kids, or I might, as growing up, saying I'll never do that with my kids, and then later on say I can't believe I'm doing that with my kids, and not appreciating what a difficult Nisayan my mother had. My mother, she had 3 children below the age of 2. I was 1 year and 10 months old when my mother gave birth to twins. So it's 3 children under the age of 2. And my mother always used to quip that she never quite recovered. I always thought she was joking, but I realized as the years continued, she really meant it. It's not easy. And I'm saying to myself, yeah, I'll never do that. And then, of course, I haven't been in the Nisayan. But some people can actually take it so much to heart, they will never go there. So it's really, I don't have a choice in my childhood, but I do have a choice of how I'm going to, what I'm going to remember and what I'm going to, but Bechira always trumps everything. And the biggest proof is our sages want us to know that Rachel and Leah, their father was Lavan, and they still became Rachel and Leah. We've got very sordid backgrounds. Yosef HaTzadik had brothers who hated him to the point where plan A was assassinate him. Plan B, let's throw him in a pit and let Hashem decide what's going to be with this 17-year-old troublemaker who's always squealing on us and getting us in trouble, that we honestly, they paskened as a based in, that he was a roidef, and that he was just an extension of Yishmael from Abraham, Esau from Yitzhak, and now Yaakov had this kid who was a troublemaker and brilliantly fooled his father to make him the favorite, but he keeps on saying Lashon Hara against them. So they paskened he's a roidef, literally. And so they paskened you're allowed to kill him. Then they had second thoughts, you know what, let Hashem decide. So they threw him into a pit of only 20 amos deep. That's, if you go with the Chazon Ish, that's 40 feet deep. It was empty, except for snakes and scorpions. And then they said, hey, look, plan C, let's make a buck on him and sell him. So he was traumatized. I think you will agree. And he's sold to Yishmaelim and then Midyanim, Shmalim, Midyanim, arrives in Mitzrayim. Did I share with this last week? No. So you know the story. He's 17 years old, extraordinarily handsome. I mean, all the ladies are turning their heads. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he's... And poor Selusha, the wife of Potiphar, has to suffer this all day, and she's changing her wardrobe 3 times a day. What she wore in the morning was not what she wore in the afternoon, not what she wore in the evening. I mean, some of you have friends who you might know who are like that, but she was doing this on a daily basis and could not get him to even look at her, let alone hold a conversation. And finally, when she's alone with him, he has to run away. And what's his reward for doing the right thing? 17 years old, stands up to this beautiful lady, assumably, and what's his reward? Jail time. How long? 10 days? 10 weeks? 10 months? 10 years. And another 2 for his ishtadlus to come out. So that's 12 years. So ladies, let's be honest with ourselves. Is 12 years a lot of time to do some thinking? Yeah, how did I get here? Oh yeah, my brothers! It's like, oh, get my hands on. Now, would you empathize with that as a possible reaction? Yeah, sure. I can. Whole life ruined, and he might even have questions against Hashem Has V'Shalom, but this is my reward for doing what I was told to do, not to betray my master's wife. He held strong. That's why he's called Yosef HaTzadik. And when his brothers finally come down to Mitzrayim, second time round, and he reveals himself to them, and they think, oh no, it's payback time. What's his response? It's in 2 places. In Perek Mem Hey, where he first responds to him, Ani Yosef, Ha'od Avichai, and then the next words are unbelievable. Loi atem shalachtim oisi hena. It wasn't you who sent me here. Now, if you and I are reading the Chumash, Yosef, with all due respect, the parsha before, like going Lamed Zayin until here, clearly sequences the chronological events as they unfolded. Your brothers tried to kill you, then threw you into a pit, and then sold you, and now you're telling me, Loi atem shalachtim oisi hena. You weren't the ones who sent me down here to Mitzrayim. And then continues the pasuk, Ela Elokim. It was the powerful powers. Oh, so he understood God is not in the business of hitting me And when I get hit, it's the stick that's hitting me, not God. I shouldn't get angry with the stick. I should go right to the source. Rabbi Shalom, help me understand, where did I go wrong? So Yosef understood that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him ahead in order to prepare for this emergency national crisis of famine, and really it was all about fulfilling a dream that he had as a prophecy years before, that eventually all his brothers would bow down in a sense of, you are the authority over us. So Yosef maintained this unbelievable sense of, you are not the ones, and I will not hold a grudge against you. Because I'll tell us that's unbelievable. Can you imagine that? Will not hold a grudge against his brothers. And even in the second time, when Yaakov Avinu dies, and they fabricate a request from their father, sending a shaliach to try and persuade him not to come down on them, thinking now's payback time, he says to his brothers, you are 10 brothers. Binyamin wasn't part of the equation. You're 10 brothers. 10 candles couldn't put out one candle. So you think one candle could put out 10? You can extinguish me, so you think I'm going to extinguish you? We're in this together. We're B'nai Yisrael. So he had to reiterate that he never held a grudge against them. The only reason they thought maybe he still is holding a grudge because he avoided speaking with them, and he avoided contact with his own father for all those 17 years. And the reason was because he didn't want his father to get into a conversation about how he got here and fill in the blanks, because he didn't want to go there. So here's someone who's not holding in the resentment. It's okay. It wasn't you. It was God who did this to me, right? There was none of that. He just saw this as, God is perfect. I don't understand always how and why, but that doesn't change the facts. And so he was able to free his mind up to exercise Bechira for where I'm told to exercise it. Oh, Yiras Hashem, Avas Hashem, to go in his ways and to love him with all my thoughts. Now, what's really interesting is what comes next. It's one of the Tariag mitzvahs, according to many, not Rambam, but Ramban, Sefer Charedim, Smag, all count this as one of Tariag. How do you get to a place where your mind is occupied with Yiras Hashem, Avas Hashem, loving Hashem with all your thoughts? Well, I've got a lot of thoughts that clutter my mind. And they keep interfering between all the stuff that's going on, both in the history of my life, and more recently, and right now, and globally. So how do I unclutter all that? So I'm going to share with you a metaphor, and then I'll share with you the passage that he says this. So, this is my Nisayon. Right? It's a bit annoying. I have to carry it. It doesn't fit in my pocket properly, but I've got to carry it wherever I go. So inside here is any issues I have, shalom bias, finances, health, the kids, mother-in-law, father-in-law, extended family, whatever's going on in my life, my career, whatever's going on in the neighbors, the neighborhood, whatever's going on in my life is in this Nisayon. So, this is my pickle. I have to carry it wherever I go. So here's where things start getting complicated. I start comparing myself to my neighbor. I don't know, I just feel like I notice every interaction. Her husband is so supportive, always there for her. I just feel that my husband's his career is more important than me and my children, our children, and my health. I can't believe my doctor says I'm a candidate for heart disease and cancer. If I don't take control of my life, I'm so what about my health and my diet? My mother-in-law won't stop interfering. I'm just trying to raise my kids the way I know best. I wish you wouldn't get involved. My own career, I just can't get it right. My boss shows me no appreciation. I put in the work of 3 employees. I haven't had a raise in 5 years. I just feel like everything is on top of me. I have to run the home. I'm on top of the kids and everything. It's just I feel like, I don't know why you're doing this to me. Yeah, why are you doing this to me? I'm carrying this wherever I go, and that's besides the commute. The commute is driving me mad. There's so much time wasted on commuting. And please, I feel like I just can't take it anymore. And God says, Rietti, look, with all due respect, this is the Nisayon I gave you. This is overweight thinking. I didn't give you this. Oh, So, this is not the problem. How do I know it's not the problem? Because God wouldn't give me this if I couldn't carry it. So this is actually not the problem. The real problem is all my overweight thinking. I choose that term because God dictates to Moshe Rabbeinu in the next verses what's the solution, so to speak, or prescription for getting to what does God, and now Yisrael, Jewish people, what does Hashem ask of you except Yira, Ava, and to love me with all your thoughts, go in my ways? So comes along the pasuk and says something astonishing. Now I'm not going to go with the translation because the translation is innocently missing the point. Umaltem es orlas livavchem. Maltem is the lashon of mila. Mila means cut off. Umaltem et orlas. Orla is an expression that applies to 5 different parts of the body. It can be the earlobes, orlas ha'oizen, orlas v'saimani. When Moshe Rabbeinu complained, one of the reasons he can't do the mission of leadership is because he has a stutter. So it can refer to the orla of the. There's something called orlas halev, which we're going to look at right now because that's what the pasuk is referring to. And then there's the orla of bris milah. Orla is translated as foreskin, means extra. In the Lashon Radak, he's a Rishon, and he's always like on top of, he has a whole sefer on every shorish of the entire Tanakh. So he explains the word Orla is a Lashon miyuta, it's extra. It's talking about something that's extra. Levavchem, when we translate it correctly, Lev means mind, Levavchem is referring to thoughts. Levavchem, oh, your thoughts. Umaltem et orlas levavchem. Cut off your extra thinking. Because that's what's cluttering my mind and doesn't let me pay attention to God's shining bright through everything that's really going on. But I can't see it because I get stuck on the stuff. So let's say it's anti-Semitism and I get scared. Well, is there another way of looking at it? So I'm going to talk about anxiety in a few minutes to tie this together. Pare didn't seem to like us too much. I mean, he was okay with Yosef, but eventually he turned against us. But the pasuk seems to indicate he was actually did us a tremendous favor, because when we were trapped on the Yam Suf in front of us, and the walls of the cliffs on both sides of us, and one canyon behind us at Pi HaChiros, where Paro came with his hundreds of chariots and horsemen and archers and warriors. Our initial reaction was v'yir'u ma'id. We were exceedingly afraid. Perek Yudalet, I think it's pasuk Yud Aleph, and then the next words are v'yitz'aku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem. After we got over the initial reaction of this is dangerous, I'm scared, I'm fearful, I've got a pachad, I'm really worried, and then the next moment I get to choose what to think next, and then realize, well, God, I did witness the 10 makas, and I did witness the Mitzvahs being like beaten and now they're back. So am I going to vote for God can still help us, or I'm going to really, really worry? And so B'yitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Hashem, we screamed out to Hashem, and the famous Targum tells us we prayed. Salu is pray. We prayed to Hashem, and that's when Hashem split the sea. So the wording in the pasuk makes no sense because it says Uparoi hikriv. Now, if it meant that Paro came close, which is unfortunately sometimes how it's mistranslated, that's fine. But that's not what it says. Uparo hikriv means Paro brought close. What did he bring close? So answers the Mechilta, Paro hikriv b'nei Yisrael la'kadosh baruch hu al yedei teshuva she'asu. Paro brought us close to Hashem through the teshuva that we did because of him, his threat. Fast forward, Nebuchadnezzar destroys the Bais Rishon. That's strange because Chazal tell us what destroyed the Bais Rishon. Gilui Arayos, promiscuity, adultery, shvichus damim, murder, and avodah zarah. So why are we saying that it was Nebuchadnezzar? And in fact, in the language, did I share this last week? No, I can't. I didn't. I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm just curious because I worry that. So Nebuchadnezzar, interestingly, in Yirmiyahu, who's giving on, he was a young Navi giving us Tochacha non-stop in very gentle, loving words, and yet we stoned him, we threw him in mud pits. We weren't good with him. We gave him a very hard time. But when Navi is Nivs Basaim, a Navi is taking Hashem's words, which go through his neshama, his mind, and out his mouth. He's speaking God's words. And he says, Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. Hey, we know that much. His name is Nebuchadnezzar. He's the king of Babel. He's the emperor of the Babylonian Empire. Continues the pasuk, Avdi, my servant. And you and I ought to have skid marks when we look at that pasuk. Excuse me, Moshe Rabbeinu is called Avdi. Later on, David HaMelech is called Avdi. Pinchas Eliyahu Hanavi is called Avdi. What are you putting Nebuchadnezzar in the same category? So comes along the Mefarshim, look at Mitzudas. It says, Avdi means he's my shaliach, shaluchi. He's my shaliach. Nebuchadnezzar didn't destroy the Beis HaMikdash. It was our three Averas. Anti-Semitism is not caused by anything other than us. It's not a guilt trip. It's actually very empowering. Oh, so it's my Lashon Hara that provides the weapons to hurt. By Sheni, the Romans destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. Well, yeah, that's technically correct historically, but the Gemara seems to take a different position and tells us what's going on upstairs in the other realm, that it was our sinas chinam, our wasted hatred, because we were getting angry with a stick. I mean, that's a real waste of hate. I'm getting angry with a stick instead of with Hashem and saying, Rebbeinu Shleilam, you sent this person in my life to trigger me in order for me to change me. But if I'm going to keep fighting the stick, then I missed the whole point. So Hashem has to hit me with another stick. And then if I fall into the trap of thinking, oh, it's the stick all the time, and I keep blaming my wife, my husband, my children, my grandchildren, my children-in-law, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, and before you know it, the whole world is the problem, and I don't have to look in the mirror because I'm turning the mirror this way, and I think the world is crazy. And Hashem says, no. These demonstrations, they're really, really good for us, because these demonstrations, pro-Palestinian, is Hashem just turning up the volume of the anti-Semitism for me, to change me. And I don't know what the picture looks like upstairs, but we're getting a lot of clips that shows people who are extremely estranged from Yiddishkeit are turning around. Some of you may have seen the clip I saw yesterday, an Israeli in an army with earring on each ear, talking about we've got to turn to our Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's the only way that we're going to get out of this. Then you have a commander in a unit that calls over one of his officers, says, you're religious. He said, he was wearing a kippah. He said, yes. He says, I need you to pray. We're in a possible catastrophic situation. 3 of our tanks, I think it was 3, are not working. And you have to pray right now. So he's like trying to adjust himself to, he's getting a command to pray to Hashem. And he asked Hashem, please, I'm asked to daven on behalf of my unit. Please don't let Chil Hashem come out of this. And he's about 15 minutes davening, comes back, and the commander says that within 1 minute of you davening, the first tank was reactivated, and then a few minutes later, the next 2. So, they're sharing with us these stories. My son, who lives in Lakewood, has a neighbor who went to school with a girl, Beis Yaakov in Lakewood, and she went off the derech. She's in her late 30s, never married, she lives in Eretz Yisrael, but they kept up. And more recently, the religious wife here in Lakewood, a neighbor of my son, was working on her friend. Maybe, this Yom Kippur, why don't you just keep Yom Kippur? Just keep it. And back and forth, she finally said, I'm going to. And what happens? Her phone's ringing throughout Yom Kippur, and she's just going to keep Yom Kippur. At the end of Yom Kippur, she sees it was her bank, and they were calling because they'd seen a number of charges that didn't fit the profile. How these algorithms work, that their red flags will turn up when spending is taken out of the bank that doesn't look like what you usually do. And they couldn't get hold of her, so she checks her account, it's wiped out. There's nothing there. And she's so frustrated. First of all, this is my reward for keeping Yom Kippur. And secondly, it's almost a month till my paycheck. And so she's got no money in the bank, nothing. And she's really angry. And she badly wanted to go to the rave party, and she didn't even have the money to go on the bus. And then she hugged. OMG, my life was saved because I had no money. So you start hearing these coincidences, stories, and start putting it together, and people are waking up. It's exactly what Hashem wanted. And that's what happened with Paro. That's what happened with Nebuchadnezzar. No, it didn't happen with Nebuchadnezzar, unfortunately. And then comes along Haman. We were okay. Look, don't tell anyone, but Achashverosh's wife is frum. She's not only frum, she's a Naviya. It's going to be okay. And then Haman becomes prime minister. Look, she's still there, and nothing's happened yet. And then in one moment, exchanging the ring of authority from the hand of Achashverosh to Haman, Chazal reveal 48 Nevi'im didn't succeed, and neither 7 Nevi'as did not succeed in helping us do Teshuvah, but Haman did. And in that moment, say Chazal, that's when we began screaming and crying and begging Hashem. Because now this decree was for every Jewish child, boy, girl, mother, father, grandparent, throughout 127 countries. The whole world has got authority to destroy us in one day. And Mordechai, I don't know why he didn't send a rally to the palace of Achashverosh, but in the end he decided it made more sense. We'll deal with the sticks later. Let's just go straight to the one who's holding them and beg Hashem, please turn this around. And so, it was completely the opposite. Instead of our total destruction, complete liberation. So, what the pattern that emerges is that real liberation is really taking place inside my mind. When I realize, God, you're good, and I owe you. You owe me nothing. And that when things go wrong, it's for my mind to address. When things go wrong in my personal life, so how can I be a better husband, a better wife, a more loving spouse, a more caring parent, more involved without getting a helicopter mom or dad? How can I get more involved in the progress of my children, both their academics, their social? What can I do differently that I'm not doing now? Those questions lead to the answers that will help me be better for who I am in my identity as a spouse, as a parent, as opposed to, if I just didn't have this person interfering in my life, I would be able to raise my kids properly. And then I get into this sichsuch of thinking it's really about me changing other people. But honestly speaking, how many people do you know that we've successfully changed by trying to change them? It doesn't work that way. So comes along the pasuk and says, "Umaltim et oralas livavchem." Cut off the extra thinking. What's extra thinking? Fear, worry, anxiety, hatred, resentment, natira, that's remembering other people. Everything that's on the negative side, that is actually a command in the Torah for me not to go there. Don't go there. Also, I'm actually given the mitzvahs of what not to think and what to think. So I'm going to close on a quick metaphor here. So I'm not sure help me if I'm getting the right angle. Can you see the sun?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see the sun? So let me ask you, is the sun always shining, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, it really is. So even if it's dark, it doesn't mean it's not shining, it's just I'm on the other side of the earth, not facing the sun. And if I'm in an aeroplane, right now it's cloudy, but as soon as I get above the clouds, yeah, the sun's always shining. Oh, so could the sun get blocked by the weather? Yeah, for sure. The weather down here might not be very good. So I'm referring here to cloudy thinking. My mind is cluttered with worry, anxiety, stress like you can't believe, and what's going to be with my marriage, what's going to be with my kids, what's going to be with my physical health, what's going to be with my mental health, what's going to be with getting off the meds for my kids. Whatever's on my mind is going on over here. But what happens as soon as the cluttering thoughts start to settle? In this case, they're going up. But when they settle, what happens? Oh, the sun is visible again. And the sun is the neshama that's always shining. There's never a moment, it can't never stop shining. You can't put a bullet through a neshama. You can't slice a neshama with a knife. The neshama is forever. That's why you never die. Literally. I mean, the body, yes, but you, the real you, is not your body. The real you is your mind. And that's powered by your neshama. So you actually, the real you, the real us never dies. So this is just a simple metaphor to start paying attention when my mind is cluttered. And this is the best time to make a decision, or no. Take a few breaths, maybe through the nose and out the nose. If you want to get into breathing, that's a good practice to get into. And then start realizing, okay, now, let me think about this, or let me give myself a break. Sometimes just going to sleep. Sometimes a bar of chocolate, dark chocolate in my case, can calm me down a bit, or coffee, and then get back to revisiting the issue. But my mind is not as cluttered, but when I'm cluttered, it's really hard. So I'm going to close now on anxiety. No, please enjoy yourselves. It's a beautiful lighting in here.
Can you do that metaphor with the girls?
Yes.
The snow globe one?
Yes. Yeah. I haven't. Oh yes, I think I have done this with Dali. I think I've done it in the younger grades, but I'll be repeating it through the year. And I pull out. It's beautiful how instead of me telling them what does this mean, and get them to give their feedback. We recently did one. I'm not sure if I did this with you because I don't have the whiteboard to do it. But did I tell you about the metaphor with the garden? No, I did this with the children. It was so mind-boggling what they come up with and how they talk about it afterwards. So I said, your mind is a beautiful garden. So I drew a garden with a lovely green grass and then different colour flowers and petals and trees that are bearing different fruit trees. So it's a gorgeous, beautiful garden. And might be a river at the back of the garden. And as you walk in your garden every day, are you enjoying your garden? Yeah, it's a beautiful garden, and you take care of it. It's a beautiful place to be. And there's, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, there's a weed. Now, what's the logical thing to do if you find a weed in your garden? You pull it out. So Rietti goes into the kitchen, fills up the watering can, and waters the weed. Now, what are you going to say to me? Is that logical or illogical? Really, that makes no sense. Why are you doing that? And then the next day, I come to enjoy my garden. Oh my gosh. It's grown much higher, and there's another one growing right next to it. The logical thing to do is pull it out from the roots. So I go in, fill my can, and water the weeds. And I was like, what's the matter with this guy? And the next day, I water the weeds and water the weeds. Now, just figure this out. As I'm doing this with the children, they see me take a black marker and start covering the grass, and it's starting to grow higher and higher and higher until you can't even see the flowers. So I asked them, what's going to happen to my garden if every day I water the weeds? My garden's going to get destroyed, disappear, and the weeds are going to absorb water, rainfall from the ground that might actually be needed for the trees. So eventually I'm going to lose my whole garden. What am I focusing on? I'm focusing on the weeds. And instead of actually just moving on, which is the next thought, I'm actually talking about it and not realizing innocently what I'm actually doing is watering the weeds. So I'm not going to take on the whole world of psychology over here, but suffice to say, something's very, very interesting. I think I shared this with you. The word psych actually means soul. I shared that with you? Good. So what we have here is that there was a logic to understanding how the soul works. And originally it was a research of the mind, because everyone agreed when they believed in the soul that the soul is what powers your mind. This is what powers our mind. We know that from our own texts. I quoted last week, I think, about wearing tefillin against the mayach. Simon Chafei in Orach Chaim tells you to wear, not you, but your husband and kids wear tefillin on exactly opposite where the mayach is, the brain, because that's where the neshama is. The neshama fills your whole body. That's a Gemara in Brachas Daf Yud, but the actual control tower, so to speak, is inside your brain. The brain is not your mind. Your mind is where it's operating inside your brain. But your mind is everything. And it affects every cell in the body. Every cell in the body listens to your mind. So comes along, and this is where I want to close on and give you a couple minutes for any questions. And also, if you need to leave early, hopefully I'll give you a few moments. The problem with me talking about a problem is that I am giving attention to the problem. There's a certain logic in the world of psychology, and I know it's getting much better with CBT and other cognitive type of therapies that's paying more attention to what's going on over here, as opposed to analyzing for a long time all the pieces that contributed to why I feel so down on myself and I need help to untangle my life. What we see here is something I think really fascinating. We can only live now. Yesterday, history, tomorrow never exists. Yesterday never exists. It happened, but I can only live now. So when I'm spending the now in yesterday, only go there if I'm learning to be a better me today, moving forward. But if I'm going there and it's watering the weeds, and I come out with, how do I know if I'm watering the weeds? Well, I come out more upset or angry or resentful or bitter or even want to take revenge, has v'shalom, or sinner, nakama, then I know that I'm watering the weeds in a way that's not helping me move forward. Actually, it's actually making me more of a victim, that I'm damaged. And there's no human being on earth who's really damaged. I could make myself go crazy and become mentally ill if I think enough about what's not right in my life, in my wife, in my health, in my wealth, etc., etc. I'm here to figure out, how do I go to my next thought? How do I get to my next thought? So I'm going to share with you something. Did I touch on this last week? The pasuk that Shlomo Melech gives us for dealing with anxiety? No? There's a famous pasuk, Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Kaf Hei, in Mishlei. I meant to bring it down when I left it upstairs, but that's the makar. Da'aga belevish. If a person has worry in his mind, lev really means mind. We talked about this at the beginning, gave a number of different makaras. Lev, the vast majority of times, actually means mind or thought. Da'aga belevish, yashchena. Yashchena, look at the Mefarshim, Perek Yud Beis, pasuk Kaf Hei, in Mishlei. Yashchena is a lashon of shechia, which means push it down, not suppress it. I mean, don't let it get so big. Maktin, make it smaller than it really is. And that's what Rabbeinu Yonah is telling us in the Mitzudas. What Rabbeinu Yonah is really saying, and I think I may have shared this with you, is the ultimate definition of anxiety. And I'm sure there's more than one, but the one that seems to be coming out of this pasuk so far in the Tite, we're going to look at three translations very quickly. The first one is Yashchena. What do I do with that thought of anxiety or worry or fear? Yashchena, play it down. Don't make a big deal out of it. So comes along this following definition. The cause of my anxiety is something that I overrate. I overestimate the power of the cause of my anxiety, and I totally underestimate the power of my mind to move on and let go. So I get fixated, and in doing so, I actually make it much bigger than it really is. And that is what is causing me the anxiety. It's not the actual cause itself, it's what I'm doing with it, what I'm thinking about it. The second meaning of Yashchena is two opinions. The Gemara doesn't tell us who says which, it just says Rav Ami, Rav Ashi. Chadama, one says it's a play on the word Yasichena, mida'atoi. Stop. Heschatas means remove it from your mind. That's interesting. The first option is play it down. Don't make it, it's not so big. And most of the things I've worried about ended up not happening nearly as big as I thought they would. And so why I wasted so much energy on that. Number two is Yasichena midatoi. Don't think about it. Just move on. Number three, Yasichena la'acherim. If I can't do one or two, if I can't just play it down and not make a big deal out of it and just move on, and I can't seem to get it out of my mind, then Yasichena la'acherim, speak it out with others. So in 39 years working with children, I've had to deal with different therapists, psychologists here and there, and it's so interesting to me, mostly that whenever I would ask them what's a good term occur for someone, a client, speaking out, even if it's Lashon Hara and Mechilas and all sorts of stuff, and it's only one-sided, so they would often quote this pasuk. So sometimes, I don't do this often, but sometimes I would ask them, what's the rest of the pasuk? Because that's only half the pasuk. So the rest of the pasuk, it's the same pasuk, is V'davar toiv yisamchena. Something good will make the daiga happy. Look at the Mefarshim there, none of them will disagree on this. The language of the words are, think about something good about the daiga that will actually make the daiga a cause for joy. That means there's something good in it. Not just a silver lining, but there's actually something I can see that might come out of this that's so beneficial, it's worth it. That means to say that if I'm going to choose someone to talk to, be it a professional or a friend, identify someone who's going to help you see something good in what I'm experiencing that can help me have a different meaning to the daiga, and goodbye daiga, because it's not so bad after all. What would happen if I really believed that anti-Semitism is Hashem's turning up the volume, but not to hurt us, to help us accelerate our teshuvah, but even beside that, the acceleration is a catalyst for the world reaching their saturation point, after which Hashem says, my erech apayim on you is spent. You're getting to this really quickly because of social media and enabling that this anti-Semitism is becoming so popular and legitimized and authoritatively okay to behave with almost no recourse. Hashem's saturation point is getting reached really quickly, and that's actually bringing about the Gula even faster. So I'm not saying that is a solution to the problem, but it's a simple example where I can take something that's a genuine daiga, and it looks like it's got real causes, but then what am I saying to myself about it? Because that's what's going to make a difference. And choose someone who can see other parts to this, as opposed to, oh, that's terrible, tell me more. And then we water the weeds. So those are 3 options when it comes to daiga. Any questions? Yes?
Sorry to keep anyone in. At the beginning, we were speaking a lot about the hero and how if we're having negative thoughts, we've got the ability to choose to overcome it. If we've got younger children, how can we guide them
Yes.
in that direction to make
Excellent.
those choices to overcome areas that they think are catastrophic?
Yeah, excellent question. How do you help children direct their attention to the source of what they're going through? It's really taking place over here. I put together a curriculum which I'm implementing here in the school. There is a really good organization called iHeart. I don't know if I mentioned it at all. There's 2 Bali Tshuva, Terry and Brian Rubenstein, work out of London. I would like to say the British have talent, but they're both actually South African. So the British Commonwealth has talent. They're Bali Tshuva, and they've established an organization for teaching resilience to adults, and now they're doing it more for young adolescents and now for young children as well. It's very, very effective. And I've got a lot of metaphors, 28 metaphors, 1 a week, which a parent can use in the home. But the most powerful way I've found is to talk to the children in question format. Example, a girl comes, let's say, I don't know, 6-year-old, 7-year-old daughter comes, Mommy. Sarah, what's the matter? Michael, next door neighbor said I'm ugly. So you say, is it true? Yes, it's true. He said I'm ugly. No, is it true that you're ugly? No. Oh, shoot. What's more important, what Michael thinks of you or what you think of you? There's a pause. What I think of me? Oh, good, I'm so happy to hear that. And just end the conversation. Because she's solved the problem. Because what matters more? If you think I'm a bashed up 2003 Camry, or I think I'm a Rolls Royce. Well, you think I'm a Camry, I'm okay with that, because it's your opinion, but it doesn't change my opinion of me. So I've got to have some frame of reference, and our parents have the most valuable advantage that until kids leave home and are independent, I don't know, around about 36, 40, around about 16, 18 years old, I didn't mean to be so on, sorry. While they're at home, hey, we've got this great advantage, especially in the formative years, of asking them questions that help form their mind of who they are. If you want to focus or put in writing particular specific questions that I would address next week, I'll be happy to. But otherwise, you know what, believe later, I'll bring you a copy, so you will each have your own copy of the curriculum that I'm giving out, because it's very simple. It's only about 100 pages or whatever. The first half of it is just about how the mind works, so to speak, with hundreds of makaras, and then the second half is all the metaphors, how to do the metaphors with the child. So I hope that helps answer a little bit. Thank you for your attendance. You're welcome, thank you.